everybody, welcome back to the channel. I am Roman, back with another 2025 MLB Division prediction video. In the previous 4 days, we've gone through the AL East, NL Central, and AL Central. So with the next two videos, we're going to finish off with the West. And in this one, we're going to start with the AL West. This division, there are so many things to talk about, but I have questions. So we're going to get right into this. Number 5, and it really frustrates me, the Los Angeles Angels. I've wanted for so long for this franchise to be good for a lot of reasons. Because of Mike Trout, because of Shohei Ohtani, because of Joe Madden when he was named a manager a few years ago, because of the unjust firing of Joe Madden a couple of years ago, now because of Ron Washington. I want this team to be good, but it frustrates me time and time again that this front office seems to either do nothing or make the wrong decision. They decided 2 years ago that they were not going to trade Shohei Ohtani at the deadline to get something for him when they knew he was going to walk away in free agency, but instead they said, we're going to try to compete second half of the year and make moves to get the Angels in the playoffs. They got Lucas Giolito and a couple of other players, but nothing that would have moved the needle, and they didn't really get close to competing in the playoffs. And then Shohei Ohtani walked away and they got nothing. So now they're sitting here with nothing. And that's no offense to some of the players on this roster. There are decent players on this roster, but they just haven't amounted to anything. I look at this roster and nothing jumps out. They do have Yosei Kikuchi as their number one starter. They did bring in Kyle Hendricks. They have Kenley Jansen apparently as their closer. I'm learning that just now live with you guys. Logan O'Hoppe is a really fun catching prospect. Ron Washington also brought back one of his old guys from Atlanta. Travis d'Arnaud is the secondary catcher. We obviously know how productive he can be. They brought in Yohan Moncada, Zach Neto, although both those guys are dealing with injuries right now. Joe Adell, once thought of as a top prospect, but hasn't really materialized in the way they hoped. Mickey Moniak is an outfielder that I think is really, really good, and let's see if he can take a step forward. Mike Trout, mostly dealing with injuries these days, and then Jorge Soler, who can be hit or miss. Like, there are some names on this roster, but they have not meshed together in any sort of way. If there's anybody I believe that could get the most out of a roster like this, it is Ron Washington, Mr. Fundamental. But there's nothing here that says, hey, this group can get it done. I don't think they're vastly improved. I think they're improved. But again, in a year where they went 63-90, it's hard not to improve. I don't think the needle's moving. And it doesn't seem like help's on the way because they only have 2 top 100 prospects. And, I mean, one of them is a right-handed pitcher, which could be good because he's in AAA, and the Angels have not been a pitching place really since the days of Jared Weaver and, why am I forgetting his name? They haven't been a place for high-end pitching talent really since the days of Jared Weaver and Wilson that used to pitch for Texas. I'll think of it in a minute. C.J. Wilson. The Angels have always needed pitching. And so they could really use that right-hand pitching prospect. He's in AAA. But again, he's the 77th prospect in baseball. And the only other guy they have is at 67, a second baseman that's in AA. So there's not a lot of reinforcements on the way if you're the Angels. So there's not a lot to be optimistic about if you're an Angels fan. And that sucks because I love Ron Washington and I want him to succeed there. I don't know if I trust this organization because a couple of years ago, the Angels got off to a really hot start with Joe Madden, and then they hit a rough patch and they fired him before the All-Star break. So it was like you didn't even give him a chance to do anything. And so I'm hoping they give Ron Washington a chance to try to move the needle. I don't know how much that's going to happen, but hopefully it will. Number 4, and I say this optimistically, the Athletics. And I literally almost said Oakland, and I refuse to say Sacramento. And literally, if you look at ESPN, they're just listed as the Athletics. There's no city. But this team, I do believe, is improved from a year ago. And I'm actually excited to see what happens. Do I think they're going to be a playoff team? No. But for a couple of months in the second half, of the season, the Athletics were one of the best teams in baseball, one of the best teams in the American League record-wise. And they did add Luis Severino to the top of this rotation. And there are some guys who can play ball on this roster. Obviously, at the closer position, you have Mason Miller, Shea Langoliers, who, with each passing year, to me, I'm just like, I look at that Sean Murphy trade in Atlanta that lost Atlanta both William Contreras and Shea Langoliers, and just, actually, I think Shea Langoliers was involved in a previous trade. But I still am kind of bitter about that Shea Langoliers trade, and it's proving to be something else. Zach Geloff had a really good year a year ago. Gio Urshela is there now. He had some nice depth. He's, I guess, slated to start at third base. Miguel Andujar, J.J. Bleday, Lawrence Butler had a great year a year ago. Brent Rooker is a star. So, again, do I think that this team is going to make the playoffs? Absolutely not. But they did win. They did have a pretty good second half, all things considered. They won 69 games a year ago. I expect this to go up by at least 6 wins. I would give them 75 wins, if not 80. I could see 80. You can convince me of 80. I think this is going to be an improved team. I think they have energy. I think they have something to prove because they're playing homeless. I think they're going to be scrappy. Do I think they're going to be good? No. But they do have a couple of top 100 guys who are pretty close to being ready. They have a shortstop in Jacob Wilson, who's number 31 in the top 100. And I think he's expected to start at shortstop for them this year. So they're clearly pretty high on him. They also have a first baseman. AA right now, 6'5", 240 pounds. Wow, that's a big dude. Nick Kurtz is expected to join the team in 2026. So I think that's supposed to be their first year in Vegas, or is that when they're still in Sacramento? I don't know. Tell me in the comments. But there is something to be excited about in Oakland as far as just exciting baseball. Playoff baseball, no, because as long as you got that blowhard John Fisher as the guy that's in control, I don't think you're going to know what winning is for a long, long time. Third in this division, and it pains me. It does, honestly. The Seattle Mariners. You'll see that I have, you can see at least partly that I have a King Griffey Jr. jersey hanging on the wall over here. My all-time favorite player. So because of that, I have a soft spot for the Mariners. I was freaking hyped when they made the playoffs for the first time in 19 years, whatever it was, 20 years. I was hyped for that. But I just haven't seen them make a lot of effort to improve that roster this offseason. They do, again, this starting rotation was nasty a year ago, and it's still nasty. But again, I need to see more from this offense. The good news for this offense is you have another year of Randy Arozarena. You have another year of Julio Rodriguez, who he had a down year a year ago, but hopefully he'll bounce back. They did lose Ty France, but you have another year of Cal Raleigh. This rotation of Luis Castillo, George Kirby, Logan Gilbert, Bryce Miller, and Brian Wu is as good as a 1 through 5 can be. I think they'll give the team a chance to win if they can stay healthy and give the Mariners 25 starts apiece. I think you're at least going to be in a chance to compete. I would like to see them do something on offense, at a bat, at some point this season. I mean, I look here, outside of the guys I mentioned, Luke Raleigh's a good player, but you could improve the first base position. Jorge Polanco is a good player, but you can improve at third base. Dylan Moore, you can improve at second base. I think there's so much room to improve here, and I would like to see them do that. The good news, as I said, these guys got a ton. They've got 7, which I think leads Major League Baseball. They've got 7 top 100 prospects, 3 of the top 50. None of these guys are on the verge of breaking through, but 2 of them are in Double-A, and there's a lot of depth on this sheet, a lot of outfielders and a lot of middle infielders, but those middle infielders have versatility. You got Cole Young, who's a shortstop second baseman. You got Michael Arroyo, who's a shortstop second baseman. You got Colt Emerson, who's their top prospect at 20, who's shortstop, third base. And as I just mentioned, that middle of the infield is where they could use the most help. But the guys closest to being in the show are Cole Young, who I just mentioned, and catcher Harry Ford. So I don't know if we'll see these guys. They are slated to make it this year. So Cole Young could provide some much needed depth and a spark in that middle infield. And we'll see what happens. I mean, a year ago, the Mariners were 85-77, second place in the division. And I'd like to see them improve on that. I'm just not convinced they will because I don't think they have the offense to compete with the top two teams. Second place, look, I have no real reason for this other than I believe the window is closed for the Houston Astros. Second place, I have the Houston Astros. This is a team, though, that has managed to still do their thing despite all the things. Last year, for most of the year, until August, the Mariners were dominating this division. And then the lowly Astros, who had struggled for most of the season, came to life and did what they do. Last year, their biggest Achilles heel was pitching. They didn't really address that. They had a ton of pitching injuries, and the guys that they did put out there didn't really do anything. They didn't really address too much other than adding Christian Walker, who is currently dealing with a minor injury. He should be ready to go. But that is a huge bat in that lineup to pair with Yordan Alvarez. But I don't think this team is going to have enough to compete with the lineup of the Texas Rangers. Second place in this division is going to come down to between the Mariners and Astros, who goes and makes a move in the middle of the season. They both need offense. The Astros need pitching. Who's going to make the move? So it wouldn't surprise me if Seattle finishes in second, because I'm looking at this Houston roster and it's not doing anything for me. Everybody from those World Series winning teams, going all the way back to 2017, is gone, except Jose Altuve, who is changing positions after a decade. Bregman is gone. Kyle Tucker is gone. Correa is gone. George Springer gone. Finding success elsewhere. All these guys. So I think the window for Houston's championship run is done. And I'm not super impressed with this roster other than the addition of Christian Walker. I think that's massive. So right now I have Houston at second, but really the battle for second place is going to be who makes the move for a bat. Or does Houston go get a pitcher? If San Francisco struggles through the first half, do they reunite with Justin Verlander a third time? There's going to be pitchers out there. Do they go say Sandy Alcantara from the Marlins at some point? That makes a lot of sense to me. If they do that, Houston's in second place. If they don't, and Seattle goes and gets the bat they need, Seattle's in second place. So that's really a toss-up. First place in this division, and by the way, they don't really have anything coming in the pipeline either, because they only have one top 100 prospect. He's a third baseman, and he's in Double-A. And he's not expected until he's 22 years old, not expected till 2026. Don't rush him. I think Houston's window is closed, but I do not think they'll be bad. It just depends. If the pitching is what it was last year, they might be bad. We'll see. They don't have Kyle Tucker. So they don't have Alex Bregman. I think it's the beginning of a new era here in Houston. But I still think they'll be competitive because they have fight. Last year showed us anything when they were really bad for part of the year. And they still managed to win the division. This team's got to fight. So I can't ever fully count them out. Number one in this division, in my opinion, and this was a call I made a few minutes ago, just looking at these rosters before I filmed this video. The Texas Rangers. Look, they won the World Series a couple of years ago, and then they've dealt with injuries here and there. This roster, on paper, still jumps out. And you make these predictions based on paper. You can't make it on anything else. But it looks like everybody's healthy other than John Gray on their pitching staff. Everybody looks ready to go. they still have Jonah Heim. They still have Marcus Simeon. They still have Josh Young. They still have Corey Seager. They have Wyatt Langford, who was a huge piece a year ago for them. They still have Evan Carter. They still have Adolis Garcia. They added Jock Peterson and Jake Berger to give them some more power. I like this lineup. I think this is the best lineup in the division by far. And so then you go and you look at their rotation, and it's Nathan Eovaldi, Jacob deGrom, Tyler Mahle, and Cody Bradford. It looks like John Gray we won't be seeing him anytime soon. He's got a wrist injury. He's on the 60-day injured list. If they're going to win this division, they are going to need to go do something. Again, I bring up a name like Sandy Alcantara. Again, I bring up a name like, if it starts not working out in Toronto, maybe you reunite with Max Scherzer. These are just names that are coming to the top of my head. There are a ton of guys out there that, maybe if Pittsburgh's offense continues to suck, maybe you go trade for Mitch Keller. There are a ton of options out there. I don't know. Maybe Yosei Kikuchi, if the Angels do what the Angels do. Maybe Severino. A lot of these teams that aren't expected to be very good. But if John Gray misses half the year or more, if you're going to want to win this division, theoretically, Texas should run away with the AL West, because this is the best lineup on paper in the division, and you have a good top half of the rotation. But I'm not sure what Tyler Mahle will give you. He's a good pitcher, but he's a fourth slot guy, which is where he currently is on the depth chart. But if he has to go to be the third guy, who knows? They do have Jacob Webb in the bullpen, who has started before back when he was with the Braves. But the best news for them is that they have Kumal Rocker in AAA. He will likely make an appearance at some point. They have Jack Leiter somewhere down there who will, I'm sure, make another appearance. This is the best roster on paper in this division, and it's not the best pitching rotation in the division. That's Seattle. Again, Seattle's offense I still think is pretty lacking. But again, it's about who makes the move they need to make. All of these teams need to make a move. Seattle needs a bat. Houston needs a bat and a starting pitcher or two. And Texas might need a starting pitcher. So there are holes in each of these lineups. But right now, because of this starting lineup offensively on paper, I'm giving it to Texas, and I don't expect it to be particularly close if everybody stays healthy. So that is my prediction for the 2025 AL West. Let me know in the comments who you think is going to win this division. I think it'll be interesting at the top three. I think the battle here is for a potential wild card at second place between Seattle and Houston, because on paper, Texas looks far and away the best team. Until the next and final division video, which will be the NL West, this has been Empire Sports Talk. I am your host, Roman Gennaro. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you see more videos like this, and I'll see you on the next one.